Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ultimate Scouting Show. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. We have got our week 4 predictions. Really looking forward to this. A lot of exciting games this week, and the NFL season is really getting underway now. We're 3 weeks in. Week 4 is about to start. We're rolling right on along here. So let's go ahead and hop right into these game predictions here. First up on Thursday Night Football, we have the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Miami Dolphins. The Bengals are the home team here. They are 3.5-point favorites. This is going to be a really interesting game. Obviously, the Dolphins are coming in really hot off a win versus Buffalo, but I think that they've got some things working against them in this game. Jalen Waddle, Terran Armstead, all hurt coming into this. They'll all probably play, but certainly something of note. Their injury report is really long this week. Their defense is coming in after playing 90 defensive snaps in like the 100-degree heat last week in Miami. That's certainly something to keep in mind as well. But they are coming in at 3-0. They came back against the Ravens. They had a big win against the Bills. They've had a great start to their season here. Short week now, you go into Cincinnati. The Bengals are wearing their all whites, their new helmets. It's kind of their Ring of Honor night. This is a very big night in prime time for the Bengals. The Bengals got the win last week against the Jets in relatively convincing fashion. I think that this is going to be a really good game. Both teams have really good explosive offenses. Their receivers are both fantastic. You've got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd on the Bengals, and then you've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the Dolphins. As you can see, I am a big Bengals fan, but I am going to go ahead and predict them to win this game. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be tough. You can call me Homer if you want to, but I definitely think that this is going to be a fun game. I just think at the end of the day, the Bengals are a little bit better prepared coming off of a short week because they get to play at home. They didn't have to travel. Miami had to leave early because of the hurricane. It was just a whole big thing. So I think that the Bengals are probably just going to be a little bit better rested, a little bit better prepared, and a little bit healthier. And I think that those things all kind of combine. And plus, the Dolphins are riding high a little bit off of a big win against their Bills. This could potentially be a little bit of a letdown game. We'll see. I am picking the Bengals in this one, 24-20. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints versus the Minnesota Vikings. This game is happening in London on Sunday morning. This is a really interesting matchup. The Vikings coming off a big comeback win versus their division rivals, the Lions. The Saints, coming off a really disappointing offensive performance versus the Panthers. I think that one of these teams is kind of trending up right now. One is kind of trending down. The Vikings are favorites here, but I just think that they have a little bit more offensive explosiveness, a little bit more firepower. I still believe that the Saints defense is good, and I think that they can get to, being a good team again. But Jameis Winston has just looked really inconsistent. He's made some really bad decisions. I know he's dealing with the back injury. Andy Dalton, may play. Jameis hasn't been practicing. I just think that the Vikings have too much going for them in this game. I am going to pick them here. I have the Vikings winning this game 23-16, and the Vikings covering that 2.5-point spread there. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons versus the Cleveland Browns playing in Atlanta here. I think that this could actually be a closer game than people realize. The Falcons' offense has actually been surprisingly pretty good, and Cordarrelle Patterson in the run game has been really efficient so far. I think it all just kind of comes down to, the Browns have ran the ball so effectively, and they've been so good on offense, just moving the ball efficiently. Brissett's not making mistakes. They're just, using the run game, pounding the rock, and taking time off the clock. And I think that, against a really bad run defense for Atlanta, they can take advantage of this. Now, you're probably not going to have Myles Garrett. I think that the Browns have some issues right now for sure, but against a relatively weak opponent here in the Falcons, I do think that they take care of business here. I have them winning this game 21-17. So that's covering that spread as well. Moving on, we have the Dallas Cowboys versus the Commanders. The Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Cooper Rush and the Cowboys are 2-0 without Dak Prescott. It's been a really good job keeping this team afloat. I think that they've, used the run game really effectively, and this defense is absolutely legit. Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence, you've got so many playmakers. This has been a really fun unit to watch. Dan Quinn's done a great job, once again, with this unit. As far as the Commanders go, they looked really bad versus the Eagles last week, only scoring 8 offensive points. They just haven't been good at all. But I don't know, something about this game just gives me a little bit of a gut feeling that it's going to be really close. I have the Cowboys winning this game 24-21, but I do think it could be a really close game. I do have the Commanders covering that 3.5-point spread there. So I just think that this could potentially be a closer game than some people are predicting. I think that with more tape on Cooper Rush, this Commanders front seven, which has a lot of really good pieces, could potentially take advantage of a pretty poor Cowboys offensive line. Interdivision games tend to be a lot closer than a lot of people expect, and that's kind of what I'm predicting here, but I do still have the Cowboys winning this game. Next up, I have the Detroit Lions versus the Seattle Seahawks. The Lions are missing a lot of pieces right now. DeAndre Swift, Frank Ragnow, a lot of their, really important pieces on offense could potentially miss this game. Amon-Ra St. Brown is not really practiced a whole lot this week either. I am a little bit concerned that, those could make a major impact on this game. I think the Lions are definitely a more talented team than the Seahawks, but I don't know that they're going to, pull away from bad teams like they potentially should. I think they're going to be in a lot of close games throughout. And this is just a little bit too big of a line for me to really pick the Lions to win by that many. I have them winning this game 28-23, but I do have the Seahawks covering that 5.5 point spread. So I think that this could potentially be a little bit closer, but I do think that the Lions pull this one out. The Seahawks lost to the Falcons last week. They didn't really look good, but Geno Smith has played surprisingly really well. And, if this defense can keep them in it, I think that this could be a little bit of a closer game. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Tennessee Titans. The Colts are 3.5 point home favorites. This is going to be an interesting game for both teams. The Colts sit at 1-1-1, the Titans sit at 1-2. Both haven't really looked super impressive this year. I think it's a really good get-right game for both teams. Now, the Colts, I just have a little bit more faith in than the Titans. I picked the Colts to win the AFC South going into the season. Obviously, things didn't start well, but I do think that they have the talent. Jonathan Taylor, that offensive line in the run game can be really, really good. You've got Pittman, Alec Pierce, Jelani Woods had a really good week last week. So I think that they maybe get this rolling a little bit this week. 20-14 is my score prediction here. I do have the Colts winning and covering the spread versus the Titans here. Titans just don't inspire a whole lot of confidence for me. I just don't think that they have a lot of the pieces necessary to be a really top tier team this year. You're relying too much on Ryan Tannehill to lead this team and kind of elevate the players around him. No Taylor Lewan, and that offensive line has looked suspect during certain stints this season. You've really got to get Derrick Henry going. You've got to control the game here. I'm not sure that they're able to do that in this one, so I do have the Colts winning this here. Next up, we have the New York Giants versus the Chicago Bears. The Giants are 3.5 point home favorites in this one. I think this is an interesting game because, coming into the season, if you told me one of these teams would be 3-1, I would have said you're crazy. But one of these teams has to be, barring a tie. I do think the Bears have done a really good job running the ball this year, but their passing game looks like an absolute mess on offense. I think that their defense has made some plays. Their pass rush has been decent, but, Kyler Gordon needs to get his stuff figured out in the secondary. The linebackers are playing well, but they're not able to stop the run very well. So this is going to be an interesting game. I think Saquon Barkley could potentially have a big day. This could go either way, but I am going to pick the Giants here to win 21-16. I have them covering that spread as well. I expect this to be a pretty defensive heavy contest. A lot of running the ball, a lot of, slow-moving offense because neither of these teams have had a whole lot of success passing the ball this year. You've both got really good run games. You've both got relatively decent defenses in certain regards. I think that both teams are going to have a really effective running game during this contest, but I'll be very interested to see which team eventually comes out on top. I do pick the Giants in this one here to move to 3-1. Next up, I have the Eagles versus the Jaguars. The Eagles are 6.5 point favorites here. They are absolutely rolling so far this season, but the Jaguars have been absolutely no joke. Doug Peterson has completely revitalized this offense. Trevor Lawrence looks fantastic already. He's already shooting into the conversation of a top 15, top 10 quarterback, and I don't think that that's bold to say at all. Go in and watch what he's done so far this season. He's been fantastic. He's really elevated Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones. All those guys are playing out of their minds. James Robinson and the rushing attack's getting going. The defense, Devin Lloyd, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen are all having great seasons. I'm actually going to pick the Jaguars to cover the spread here. I still have the Eagles winning 28-24, but I just think the Jaguars have shown too much. I think that they've been too good of a team to have this big of a line, and I'm going to pick them to cover the spread here. On the Eagles side, I do think that they're still a more talented team. I think that they have a little bit more veteran leadership. They've got guys that, have instilled winning culture, and I think that that's really important. But I do foresee them winning this game here. I think it's going to be closer than people think. It's 28-24 in this one. Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the New York Jets. The Steelers are 3.5-point home favorites in this one. I think that the Steelers' offense has looked so stagnant, and their defense really has done a terrible job stopping the run so far. With no TJ Watt, they're not getting as much pass rush. This team does not look like they're headed in the right direction necessarily. But that being said, you're running into a Jets team that has had a really rough go of this, start of the season here. They really should be 0-3, but they had that fantastic comeback against the Browns. They got handled by the Bengals last week, didn't score an offensive touchdown. The good news for the Jets, though, is Zach Wilson is coming back. That's obviously really exciting, but he also probably adds more volatility to this team. I think that, he could come in and be really, really good. He could also come in and be terrible and worse than, what Joe Flacco was putting on the field there. I do think that the Steelers win this game, but I think it's going to be a pretty heavy defensive contest. Both these quarterbacks have not really been super efficient throughout their careers. Trubisky has shown that this season. Zach Wilson last year was very turnover prone. He had a lot of issues. So I think that defenses could play a huge role in this game, probably a decent bit of turnovers as well. And I do have the Steelers winning this game 23-20. I do have the Jets covering that 3.5-point spread by 0.5 point there. So I think this could be a field goal contest. I think it's going to be close. I think that the Jets could potentially win this one, but I do pick the Steelers just because I think that their defense is a little bit better. And, I think that they have a culture which Mike Tomlin isn't going to let them fall too far below 500. I think that they get back to 2-2 in this game. Next up, we have the game of the week. I think pretty clearly we have the Ravens versus the Bills. The Ravens are 3.5-point home underdogs versus Buffalo. Buffalo was just so injured last week, and they're going to be healthier, but, you still don't have Micah Hyde. You're still missing some really key pieces on that back end in the secondary in particular. I think that Lamar Jackson, with the added element of really being able to run the ball super well, and, they've got a really interesting core of wide receivers with Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay, and then of course Mark Andrews as well. This is a really unique offense, and the Bills defense I think may potentially have some issues with it. That being said, this Ravens secondary has been really bad so far this season. They're dead last in passing yards given up so far this season. I think Josh Allen could potentially feast on that. And I just think that the Bills are too good to, lose games like that. They really should have won last week when you look at the box score. Teams that have that much time of possession and that big of an advantage when it comes to yards and first downs and all that kind of stuff, they just win. And I think that, it was pretty crazy that the Bills weren't able to win that game. There were a lot of crazy circumstances that led to that. I do have the Bills rebounding in this game here, though I am really excited to watch what Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen can do in this game. I have the Bills winning 31-27. I think that this is going to be a kind of a shootout. Both quarterbacks are playing out of their minds, probably MVP frontrunners here. So really exciting to watch this game. Definitely something I will be tuning in for. Next up, we have the Houston Texans versus the LA Chargers. The Texans are 5.5-point home underdogs. Now, the Chargers are a really good team, but they are so injured right now. Joey Bosa just went on IR. Rashawn Slater's done for the year. So you've got Jamari Salyer is going to be starting at left tackle, which is not a great sign. He was, a late round rookie this year, and he's beaten out Storm Norton, which is, I'm glad Storm Norton's not playing, but that's not good. Justin Herbert's still banged up. Keenan Allen, J.C. Jackson, all these guys are still really banged up, and the injury bug has hit this team so hard. I've pretty much picked the Texans to cover almost every week so far, and they've done a really good job of that. They continue to hit, and I just think that this team has a lot of fight in them, and they're well coached, I think, by Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith, I think, is really underrated in what he's doing with Houston this year. Him and Pep Hamilton, I think, have done a fantastic job keeping Houston in games that they really shouldn't be in based on their talent level. Against a really injury-riddled team, I do think that they stay in this game. Now, the Chargers have a lot of talent here. You still got Mike Williams. Keenan Allen hopefully will be back. Justin Herbert is a fantastic quarterback. Even when he's playing hurt, he's still really, really good. You've got enough fantastic pieces on this team that I still predict them to win this game, but I do think that the Texans cover. I have the Chargers winning 23-20 here. really interested to see how this game goes. I could see the Texans winning just because of all the stuff the Chargers are dealing with right now. I could also see Justin Herbert going absolutely off and, throwing 5 touchdowns. But for now, I am predicting a Chargers win, but a Texans cover. Moving on, we have the Panthers as 1.5-point home favorites versus the Arizona Cardinals. This is probably the matchup of the 2 worst head coaches in the NFL, in my opinion. Cliff Kingsbury versus Matt Rule. And I think that this is going to be really interesting to see which one is more incompetent, basically. I think, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are a more talented team, but I say that, and the defense is horrible for the Cardinals. It really is. It's awful. On the flip side, the Panthers have a terrible offense. They're not getting DJ Moore involved. Baker Mayfield really hasn't looked good. Christian McCaffrey is still dealing with nagging injuries, but he's played well up to this point. They really haven't unlocked that offense, though. But the Panthers have a really fun, young defense. So I think it's going to be strength on strength, weakness on weakness. I'm really interested to see how this game goes. The Cardinals and the Panthers both are really inconsistent. The Cardinals, will look terrible for 3 quarters and then come all the way back like they did against the Raiders and win the game. The Panthers will look awful one week and then come back and, beat the Saints, who I thought were a pretty decent team. And they completely limited Jameis Winston and forced him into bad plays. So I think that this is going to be an interesting game. It's tough to predict. I am going to pick the Cardinals in this one. I have them winning 27-23, covering that spread as well. So this is going to be a tough matchup. I think Kyler and the Cardinals are too talented, and I think that they rebound here, but it's going to be a close one. I'm very, very curious what happens in this game. Moving on, we have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Patriots. The Packers are 10.5-point favorites in this one. They are playing in Lambeau, and it's going to be Brian Hoyer at quarterback for the Patriots. That's why this line is so big. A Brian Hoyer-led Patriots team, I don't think, scares anyone in the NFL. With the weapons that they currently have, the Patriots probably are not going to be effective offensively. They were already relatively poor with Mac Jones at the helm. Now you throw in Brian Hoyer, who I just don't think can operate the offense as effectively as Mac Jones, and it was already bad. I just don't expect them to score a lot of points. That being said, I don't know that the Packers are really, a super explosive team up to this point. And you're facing Bill Belichick, who I just don't think is going to get blown out of the water. The Packers play a very methodical offense at this point. It's a lot of running, it's a lot of screens, short passes, RPOs, probably taking up a lot of time on the clock, a lot of time of possession, but I'm not sure that they're going to be scoring, 35 points in this game. And that's okay. You can rely on a really good defense and, just an efficient offense. But 10.5 for that kind of play style, I think is just a little bit too big of a line for me. I have the Packers winning this one for sure. I think that they are way too talented, and you're going against Brian Hoyer and a really poor supporting cast of the Patriots offense there. But I have them winning 27-19, so I do have the Patriots covering that big of a spread. I just think Belichick's teams are not going to get blown out like that. I think that the Packers play a little bit too conservative on offense to build that big of a lead, and I'm not quite sure that the Packers are going to get there. Though, that being said, they're definitely a more talented team. I definitely think that they win this one handedly, but maybe not by 10 points. Next up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Denver Broncos. This is it. This is the last time I'm doing this. I say that now, but it's probably not going to be. I'm picking the Raiders again. I'm pretty sure I've picked them every single week, and I have lost every single week. They're the only 0-3 team in the NFL. I just think that they're too talented to be 0-3 right now. They're not the worst team in the NFL, and they've got to get things turned around. And there's just got to be some serious urgency within this team. I think that they really work to get Davante Adams and Darren Waller much more involved in this game. The Broncos are still sputtering offensively. They really haven't figured it out. Russell Wilson and this team just can't seem to figure it out and put it all together offensively. Defensively, they're playing really well, and that's going to be a big concern for the Raiders. But, with a team that I just don't think is at the absolute prime of their season and playing their best football, this is a real chance for the Raiders to get back on track. Derek Carr, Davante Adams, Darren Waller all have to have big days here. And I just think it's going to be kind of a do or die situation, and the Raiders are going to come in and be able to pick up this win. I have them winning this game 28-24. I have them winning and covering that 2.5-point spread. It is interesting that an 0-3 team is favored versus a 2-1 team, but I think a lot of people see what I see. in that the Broncos really haven't looked good. Looking at this team, they don't look like a team that deserves to be 2-1, and the Raiders don't look like a team that deserves to be 0-3. So now I am picking the Raiders. Hopefully they don't make me regret it for like a fourth week in a row, but I am going with this one in this game, 28-24. On Sunday Night Football, this is going to be a really fun matchup. We've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. There was some speculation this game might be moved to Minnesota because of the hurricane, but it sounds like it's going to be happening in Tampa Bay, which is crazy. Hopefully that all works out. This is going to be such a fun game, though. The Chiefs and the Buccaneers, that Super Bowl matchup from just a few years ago. The Chiefs have a lot of firepower. They've got a lot of weapons. Patrick Mahomes is playing really well. On the flip side of it, the Buccaneers, their defense is absolutely rolling. They've been fantastic recently. Tom Brady just doesn't have a lot of help around him right now. He at least does get Mike Evans back this week. That's really good. I'm just not sure that the Buccaneers have the offensive firepower to keep up with the Chiefs, even if the Bucs defense is able to slow them down, which they probably will. Patrick Mahomes is too good. He's going to have his place. He's going to take advantage of it. And Tom Brady and the Bucs offense have really got to keep up. They've got to get the run game going. Leonard Fournette just hasn't been effective. And, when people are able to tee off on Brady, it doesn't usually work out super well. You've got to get that run game going. You've got to get your receivers healthy and able to get in that action and make plays for Tom Brady. I do have the Chiefs winning this one 24-20. I have them covering that spread as well. I think that this is going to be a really fun game. I'm really excited for it, but I do have the Chiefs winning this one. All right, lastly, on Monday Night Football, we've got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the LA Rams. The 49ers are 2.5-point home favorites in this one. Even though they sit at 1-2, they are favorites in this game, and I am going to pick them here. I have them winning 20-17. I do have them covering that spread as well. I just think that this team is too good. Much like the Raiders, I think they're too good to have the record that they do. Their defense is playing at an elite level. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, all those guys have just been awesome. Hufanga, I just want to shout him out, has been one of the best safeties in the NFL this season. I never even heard of him until week 1. He has made at least 1 or 2 plays every single week that are truly impressive. Check him out if you haven't already. Super under the radar player. This defense is playing out of their minds. They've been really good. They gave up 11 points to the Broncos last week. 9 really, because of that safety, and they still lost the game. This offense just has to get unlocked a little bit. And I think Shanahan is smart enough. He can make the adjustments, and I think that they're going to get going here. The 49ers have had a lot of success against the Rams in the past, and I do think that continues in this game. Sean McVay and this offense just really haven't hit the same gears that they did last year. I'm not quite sure what it is. The offensive line has been better in the past 2 weeks, but they weren't really facing top-tier pass rushes. Now that they are, I think Bosa, I think Armstead, all those guys are going to have big impacts in this game. And I do think that they're able to kind of shut down this Rams offense. I do have them winning this one 20-17. I'm really excited for this game. I think it's going to be a fun one as well. So there we have it. Those are our week 4 predictions here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did reach this point in the video, please subscribe. It helps me out so much. Like that video as well. That would be absolutely awesome. I'm trying to continue to grow this channel and really continue to put out weekly football content just like this. So if you would support me, that would be absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Thanks so much.